Well, he didn't have.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to start now. We're waiting for a couple of speakers to come in. I'm going to start with some opening remarks. I want to thank you all so very much for coming here. Excuse me. And I'm going to be reading because I'm not very good at a lot of times off the cuff. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for being here for another great Alliance meeting. And I want to thank Rolling Thunder National for letting us have our second meeting here to coincide with Rolling Thunder Right for Freedom. And I want to say congratulations to Rolling Thunder because this is their 30th year of having Rolling Thunder Right for Freedom, which is to educate people regarding the prisoner of war missing in action issue, which is considered more like POW/MIA. And then Rolling Thunder they began with the POW/MIA issue, and then they have gone on into other things to help veterans families, homeless veterans, trying to find homes for them. So the Rolling Thunder and Rolling Thunder National are doing a great job for POW/MIA issue and all veterans and their families. So we appreciate that very, very much. And we appreciate your perseverance on the POW/MIA issue. And thank you everyone who has supported and to continue to financially support the Alliance so that we may continue to give voice to those prisoner and missing. Our principal goal is the return of our live POWs and a truthful accounting of the missing. Now the question is there or could there be a living American from World War II, the Cold War, Korea, Vietnam, Gulf Wars, or Afghanistan? Some say yes, some say no. No matter the belief, we still need to try and get a truthful, and I mean truthful accounting of each of these men and women. If one is alive, the United States of America needs to bring them home. There is a man who is still in foreign hands that was captured 10 years ago, Bob Levinson. He is not considered a POW or MIA, but the FBI describes Bob as one of the longest held American civilian hostages in U.S. history. Bob's last known place of captivity was Iran. Last January, the U.S. government secured the release of American citizens who were unjustly detained in Iran. On the same day, we wired $1.7 billion to Iran to settle a financial dispute. We also released several Iranians who had been accused of violating U.S. sanctions, and then the U.S. government approved a tenuous nuclear deal. What did this do? It opened the door for the lifting of trade sanctions. All these concessions were big strategic and economic wins for Iran. But what about Bob? His family says it was not forewarned when the captives were released, and they watched the news report and saw that Bob was not among them. And that happened with my brother in Vietnam at Operation Homecoming. In the past 12 months, Ann Carolyn Standerwick, wife of Colonel Robert L. Standerwick, U.S. Air Force missing in action, Dr. Jeff Donahue, brother of Major Morgan Jefferson Donahue, U.S. Air Force missing in action, and Cindy Schanberg, renowned journalist who fought intensely on the cover-up of the POW/MIAs that America left behind in Vietnam, among others we do not know about, have died. I can't help but think that Ted Sampley, my sister Dolores Alfon, and our dear Lynn O'Shea, along with all the others who have passed, are having deep conversations with Carol and Jeff and Sydney about the fact that they finally know the truth about their loved ones and of all America's prisoner and missing. It warms my heart that they finally know the truth. But, it takes somebody to die for them to finally know the truth of what's happening, and that's a very, very sad fate. When you die, I believe personally that it's hard on the people that are still here, but they know the truth. And that does warm my heart, knowing that they finally know that all the thought that they've done all their lives here, that they're finally figuring out and knowing the truth, that they were right in the first place. Last year, we informed you that we were going to begin the process of updating our website, which is what did happen with your helpful donations. But there is a hiccup of sorts in the completion of the site. It has been a long process, but when you have a 20-year-old site full of thousands of pages of data, but rest assured, we are still working with a hired webmaster to get the site up and as user-friendly as possible. It's up, but it's just not, for some reason, the hiccup is that people just can't see it. So we have to work with that. So when you go on our website, what you're going to see is the old website. The new website is someplace in bad website land. And I want to let you know also that these sessions today will be video recorded and shared on the Alliance's Facebook. And I want to thank Keefa in the back who's making this possible. So you can tell your friends and family that can't see it right now that it is going to be seen on Facebook. And it will be done today. And on a personal note, my brother, Major Victor Joe Apodaca Jr., and forgive me, you're not going to be able to see this very good, but this is my brother Victor, who was missing June 8, 1967. He was the first Native American accepted to and graduate from the Air Force Academy. And this morning, there's a ceremony at the new Native American Memorial at Arlington Cemetery. And my daughter, Nicolette, will be representing our family and the Alliance at the ceremony, but she'll be here later, joining us later this morning. So I want to thank that it's finally up for the Native Americans. I want to thank my daughter for being able to go to that for us. And I want to let you know our friend Roger Hall, who has a lawsuit against the CIA, is in the back selling items, and I'd ask you to visit him and purchase some items or donate, because all of the funds will go to help his lawsuit against the CIA, which is still an ongoing project. And I want to thank you again for being here and your continued support of the National Alliance of Families. And we have another great program today, so let's begin. And normally we begin with a talk and a blessing by Mike McDaniel, but he's not here. So, guess what? We get to change this just a little bit, and our next speaker, and I need to, isn't it you, Mr. Benj? Yes, can you come up now and speak, Mr. Benj? So our next presentation will be former POW Mike Benj on his research and his upcoming book. And if he says a few foul languages, that's okay. We love him anyway.
A little bit visual compared here, but that actually works to your advantage. I won't be able to end up reading off so much of what I've written here. But actually, when I was contacted by Janella and asked whether I could end up speaking today, I thought, well, this is a good thing. And I said, what am I going to end up speaking about? And then she asked me, and I said, well, I'll speak to you about my book that I'm writing. But actually, I thought that I could do a double duty here by writing something up that I could then end up presenting here, and at the same time it would be a chapter for my book. And so that's what I did, and you're very lucky for two reasons. Number one is I can't read all that well, but number two is that because there's 21 pages to my chapter here, so I'm going to just kind of give you some highlights and a little background on it. The name for my book that I've chosen is An Ugly American in Hanoi, as a POW. Now, many of you may not know what the term ugly American means, and people ask me, why would you choose a name like that for your book? Well, The Ugly American was a book that was published way back when we were just getting involved in Vietnam. And one day, book by some guys who they took kind of a composite of several Americans who were working in Southeast Asia, many of them very much involved in putting down the communists in the Philippines, putting down the communist movement there. And in the book they featured a guy that was name of Hillsdale. And he was considered an ugly American because, number one, I guess he had some money, and he and his wife joined a Peace Corps type of an organization before the Peace Corps existed, and went out to work in Vietnam, Cambodia. And they were doing some very good things, and they lived off the local economy, ate the local food, they learned the language, and they were doing the right things. Well, they were considered as ugly Americans by what we call the skatey-potaty, striped pants guys. The American ambassador and the other dignitaries that's around, because really these guys are living with the natives. You know, they've gone native, something wrong with them. And so they were termed the ugly Americans. Of course, that phrase got turned around to where it's connotated as being the Americans who go overseas and very obnoxious, maybe drunk, messing around and giving America a very bad image. But that's not what the book was all about. And President Kennedy, the authors sent him a copy of the book. He got very much engrossed in it. And as a result of it, Kennedy created was the one instrumental in creation of the Peace Corps. And because of the inspiration from this book, now the Peace Corps was based on an organization that I first went to Vietnam in 1963 with, and it's called International Voluntary Services. And all of the first publication that came out on it, they had pictures of the guys I was with. Luckily I wasn't in that because it was a year before I got over. But they had the pictures of all the guys from our organization showing what they were doing. And that was the pattern or the inspiration for the Peace Corps. So I'm the ugly American member in Hanoi. And anyway, so that's kind of the way of my introduction of what I've done is gone through, and I've highlighted a number of very crucial incidents throughout the document on how the whole POW issue got screwed up. But first I'd like to lead off with, this isn't anything new. In World War II, the Soviet Union held, after they overran some positions in occupied Germany and some of the satellite countries over there, they captured or liberated American and Allied POWs, and rather than turning them back to the U.S. and the Allies, they ended up taking them to the Soviet gulags there. And there's a very, very good book that was written by Jim Sanders and Mark Salter, who will be one of the speakers today, and I think Mark's your partner there too. And they wrote a book called Soldiers of soldiers of misfortune. And they supposedly, the Soviet Union took about 23,300 of these POWs, both U.S. and Allied, and put them in the gulags in the Soviet Union. It was never released. President Eisenhower was made aware of this. This was the start of the Cold War, and they decided, well, we're just going to end up sacrificing these people for the cause. And they weren't about to confront the Soviet Union in that time. He then goes to the Korean War, and the same thing happened in the Korean War. We left POWs behind. They were taken to China, Soviet Union, and some still was being held in North Korea up there. And they've been cited a number of times, but the U.S. government said, oh no, they were Russians or something that these people saw. But they really weren't. They were identified, actually identified by their pictures on who they were and everything. And so that never happened. So we come to the Vietnam War, and the title of that portion of it is Bohica. And you may not know what the term Bohica means, but it means bend over, here it comes again. And this is the Vietnam portion. There were some 300 POWs that were not released that had been identified as being alive at the time of capture and was never returned in 1973, the names of them. The co-chairman of the POWMIA Select Committee there, which was dominated by Senator Kerry and McCain, neither one of them are prone to be favorable to the movement. And he submitted a list of the names of these people. They were just disregarded by McCain and Kerry, who more or less overwhelmed even though McCain was not the vice chair, the Democrats were in at that time, so Kerry was the chair, McCain was not the vice chair. Senator Bob Smith from New Hampshire, who was a very mild-mannered senator, and he was just overpowered by McCain and Kerry. So we had so many of the things, that there was evidence that live POWs were held behind, but they disregarded this. And in the conclusion of the report, they said, well, there's no evidence that any POWs were left behind that are alive. And so at least Bob Smith was able to give them yes, and there's no evidence that they're dead either. And so, but that was the turn of it, which started the whole thing in the POWMIA cover-up with Vietnam. One of the things which is very fundamental to this issue is the what I have here called "Show Us the Money." Kissinger, actually, since it wasn't only Kissinger, but at that time our increased president promised if the POWs were released and all was released and everything, some $3.5 billion in war reparations. Now that's been misconstrued by a lot of people because it was war reparations for Indochina. That means Laos, Cambodia, and Vietnam. But of course, the Vietnamese communists says that, well, this was promised to us because number one is they were neo-colonizing both Cambodia and Laos at the present day, but China has given them a run for their money. But they never, there was on the memorandum that was or letter that was sent there, there was a codicil, just a kind of one-liner that says, of course, this will all be done through the Constitution of both countries. And of course, Constitution of the country, that the Congress were the ones that would approve the money, and they weren't about to approve any money for Hanoi. So that killed the issue, basically, of the POWMIAs, or of the POWs. There is evidence that there was a second-tier prison system in Vietnam at the time. There was a Soviet document called the 1205 document of a translation by the Russians, and was found in Russian archives, whether it was accidentally or on purpose, was found in Russian archives, that was saying at that time they were holding that many POWs, 1,205 POWs at that time. And so these evidence is there. Well, since Congress refused to appropriate any money to reward the Vietnamese for doing something humanitarian, that should be humanitarian, Vietnam decided, well, some of them goes to Russia, some of them goes to China, and some of them disappears into what I call the black hole of Laos. They were being held there. The CIA was tracking a number of the POW camps that was in Laos. There were, we did get some documentation out that was documented in Lynn O'Shea's book, that they were tracking at least 12, no, 10 POW camps in Laos at that time. And we did have evidence that at the time there was, at least at that time, there was evidence of 67 live Americans being held in those prisons over in Laos. And there was also evidence that some of them went to the Soviet Union, especially the high technical people, backseaters, and some of these new planes and everything, which both the Soviets and the Chinese wanted to get information on these. So these guys just ended up simply disappearing over there. So since Vietnam wasn't going to get the billions of dollars that they thought had been promised to them, they decided, well, we'll do what we did with the French POW, we'll ransom remains. And so that's what they're doing at the present time. I don't know how many millions of dollars that are spent on the trying to get remains from the North Vietnamese. But although there was evidence that they were warehousing a large number of remains, the mortician testified that they were holding all of these remains, warehousing them up in Hanoi. They would go out to the crash sites, although they may have the remains there of the people from the crash sites and what have you. They would take them out and milk, what I call milking the cow, cash cow, for recovering these remains. And that's what they've been doing over the years, and we're still doing it. So then I've got a section here. There is no light in the black hole of Laos up there because we've had very little cooperation. The CIA, Roger Hall, will end up telling me about the lawsuit that has been against the CIA release of information, documents on the POWs that had been held or were being held, still maybe being held in Laos over there. But we've been getting very little except redacted documents out that doesn't tell you too much, but Roger will clue you in on that. So So the next portion of I have is the fix within, because it was already rigged on what was happening, and that was that the ransoming only remains. And although we did get a couple of sets of remains behind that the forensic anthropologists did analyze and saying that they died way after 1975. So they were alive yet in Hanoi, past the time of the Operation Homecoming in 1973. And then I have, here I'm kind of going back on what was happening. I have Roger Shields, the kiss of death. And when I had returned from Southeast Asia in the early 80s here, I went to a National League of Families meeting, and Dr. Roger Shields, who was a deputy in the Pentagon at the time for the POWMI affairs, came and gleefully announced like the little Jack Horner who sat in the corner eating his Christmas pie, gleefully announced that we're doing something great. We're offering ransom for the remains of POWs in Laos, not offering rewards for live POWs, but only for dead POWs. And I was incensed, got up in the meeting, and I told him, you have just signed the death warrant for our POWs there. You're dropping remains, or dropping leaflets over Laos and North Vietnam, saying you're offering rewards for remains. What about live POWs? And I walked out, went over with a group of people, and went to chain myself to the White House fence, along with some of the MIA family members. However, what it turned out to, when I was getting ready to do it, I had several friends of mine who was on the National Security Council, people who had worked with over in Vietnam, and actually Dolph Rhodes was one of them, that I was living at his house. And every morning we would come to the old executive office building, which is part of the White House fence, by the way. When people say that they changed themselves the White House fence, oftentimes it's to the fence around the portion of the old executive office building, which is part of the White House complex. Anyway, I went over, changed myself to the fence, we called the press. We had bracelets of 3 Thai POWs who had been held with us in camp in Hanoi in there, who were not released. And so when I walked up to the guard saw me, and he said, "Oh, Mr. Benz, what are you doing?" And I told him I'm going to chain myself to the White House fence. He said, "Wait, can you wait till I get hold of Mr. Droge?" Because I used to rode every morning in and drop me, he would drop me off there. I would get out and I'd say good morning to the guard, and Dolph would then park his vehicle in the basement and go up and do his work up in the building there. And so he called Dolph, and of course Dolph couldn't come out and meet me. And so they sent and it was policy not to meet any protesters. I had anybody from the White House or associated with the White House meet the protesters there, but there was a Navy officer who was on the National Security Council, and I had had lunch with him probably a week before that, but he came out nondescript, and said, "Hey Mike, what the hell are you up to?" And I said, "I'm going to change myself fence. Here's bracelets of 3 POWs. They were Thai allies that were with us that are still locked up in Hanoi, and Nixon's promise and Henry Kissinger's promise that all the POWs have been released bogus." And he said, "Can you loan me the bracelets?" And said, "Yeah." So he disappeared back into the bowels of the executive office building. About 10 minutes later, he came out and he said, "Mike," he said, "I've got a promise that all of the guys on the National Security Council plus Henry Kissinger are going to wear the bracelets of these Thai POWs until they get released. They did get released later after that. Now, I wasn't the only one who was, advocating for their release. There were other POWs that had been with them that was through their own channel in connection with doing it too. But I'm just saying that that just proved that it was a lie there, because they were part of us. So then I go to the mortician who they brought in to testify, and he I don't know how he had ever gotten out of Hanoi at the time, but he testified of all of these remains of American servicemen that they were warehousing, and he had processed them. I believe he was the plant that came out. They're all dead. We got remains of them. You want the remains back? Show us the money. And that was, he came out. Then I have Songbird McCain, who got a bill passed which basically top secret classification of any documentation, including my debriefing. And I didn't have any really secret stuff in my debriefing of anything relating to POW MIAs in Vietnam. So it all got classified by John McCain. The reason I call him Songbird McCain is because he had got the nickname because he was doing a little taping, radio broadcasts, and newspaper interviews against orders from his senior officers, and doing a little bit of cooperation with the North Vietnamese at that time. Then we come into shredding parties. We had high-ranking people, including the general, who was the head of JTFFA, Joint Task Force for Accounting, a high-ranking CIA personnel, a Navy commander from Still, I went over and spent 3 days doing yeoman's work of shredding all the documentation. With actually 30 linear feet of documents accumulated through interviews, live sightings, what have you, of POWs. And they shredded them against the protests of the U.S. ambassador there. So Songbird McCain and Kerry is part of this. Then I have the part here of written testimony, and I cite the Boxley twins. Now probably some of you may not know the Boxley twins. They were a couple of, it was a very popular book, especially for young ladies back in the day there. And they were a couple of scatterbrained young teenagers who thought that they were amateur detectives. And so I've named Kerry, John Kerry, son to John Kerry, and John McCain as the Boxley twins, because they're scatterbrained and thought they were very a bunch of the. Then we have the underground bunker thing, and they let DOD agents that had been in Hanoi, who were part of the cover-up scheme, testified that there couldn't be an underground bunker down there because the water table is too high. And how did he know? He rode his bicycle around the compound. There were no air vents or anything there. Very same day of his testimony, front page, Washington Post, an atomic energy study was on the front page that said there is an underground bunker there. We did this remote, what do you call it, remote sensing radar there, and they had a whole diagram of the bunker. It's a commonplace bunker that the Soviet Union used to do foreign aid to all its client countries. There, Saddam Hussein had that underground bunker over there. It's a little drier over there than it was in Hanoi, but hey, Ho Chi Minh's tomb right there, right from where this guy tried to ride his bicycle down, goes 3 stories underground, down there to a maintenance compound under them. Yet, when I gave the copy of the paper to Senator Bob Smith, who some people kind of call him Deputy Dog, like the old cartoon, this kind of dopey sheriff guy, he always got his point across and solved the crime, but he was kind of, you know, I don't want to say slow-witted, but anyway, but I gave it to him. He went up, he was the co-chairman of the BOWMI thing, of the select committee, and he wanted this entered into the record. And John McCain said, no, you cannot do it, that's a classified document. And would not let him enter it into the record, showing that these guys were lying. And he let his testimony stand riding his bicycle. You know, the water table's too high, you can't have an underground bunker there. But yet, front page of Washington Post, you couldn't enter that because it's classified. So anyway, then we go to Kerry and McCain's betrayal, and I've got a nice picture of Senator McCain hugging Bowie 10, who was the equal, North Vietnam's equal to Joseph Mingo, who was the propaganda for the Nazis, for Hitler. And he's well known for his quote, if you tell a big enough lie often enough, people will believe it. And I have the picture there, the caption there of this McCain hugging Bowie 10 as his long lost friend. And then I have the betrayal, didn't stop there, and then I have a picture of John Kerry with the Viet Cong flag as the backdrop. That's a Photoshop one, but I thought it was very appropriate because actually, if you pardon me, John Kerry was pimping for the communists all along. Then I have a picture I finally found of a very angry John McCain, and I have it by McCain's frequent disparaging and disrespectful remarks or conduct unbecoming a U.S. senator and officer, and surely not that of a gentleman, more in keeping with those of a gutter snake. And this, I have a paragraph on how Dolores Alphon, when she testified before the committee, and McCain just drove her to tears. He was cruel, a very cruel person. And then I have a picture of Grumpy Cat there, and another bit about John McCain, and Grumpy Cat says, I'm glad